So my name is Karis Chellin, and I'm the children's librarian here in Greenwood. And like we were just talking about, I was a homeschool mom for 8 years and have graduated 2 of my kids. And so I found out little by little how to keep records and how to keep report cards and things like that. And I would have liked to have known from the very beginning. So I just like to share a little bit of my experience and just to say that this is certainly not the only way, but just some of the things that I've picked up over the years. So I'm gonna screen share now and show you my PowerPoint. Okay, so do I have the full screen up?
No.
No. There we
See.
go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So record keeping, report cards, and transcripts is our Homeschool 101 series. So the state of Delaware does not have very many requirements. I just want to start with the legal requirements. After you register your children in your homeschool, all that the state requires is attendance at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, you register your children and state their grade, and then say you 180 days at the end of the year, you just submit that. So there are no report cards, transcripts that are required at all, but there's just many reasons why they're beneficial and helpful to have. So accountability is a huge one. Just knowing which assignments have actually been done, which were completed, which ones still need to be done. It's great to give a sense of accomplishment both to you and your children. There are going to be hard days. When there's a hard day for the teacher and you feel like you're really not getting very far, it's so encouraging to look back and see, you know, we really did do a lot this year. Look where they were 3 months ago and look where we are now. And it's just kind of a booster. And really likewise for the children, the same thing. They just can't get this math concept, but then they look back and they say, you know what, I'm so much further ahead than I was before. And so it is just a morale booster. And of course, colleges and post-high school institutions generally want to see a report card or a transcript to even begin talking to you. And so those are some of the things. And so when you are getting ready to start making these records, you want to think about your audience. If you're applying to a college or a trade school or the military or an employer or a scholarship committee, you just want to think about the type of presentation you want to give them. You want it to look professional and be accurate and to give a complete picture of what your child has accomplished and who they are. So moving on to the next slide. I just use really basic tools for keeping records. I had a 3-ring binder that was my teacher binder, and it's really old now, but I dug it out. It's kind of empty now, but you know, it's just your basic 3-ring binder that I put a picture in that I liked, and I organized it at the beginning with a grading scale, some important passwords, you know, a phone number for the school who I bought the curriculum from, all those kind of key things, and calendar for the year. I kind of compared the local school district with ours and kind of observed who had days off when, so my kids could play with their friends. We arranged it so that it coincided with my husband's days off, you know, things like that. You have the freedom to pick and choose when you want to do school, and just to make sure you get it all in. And then, you know, we belonged to couple homeschool organizations, so I had all the info for that. But I also, you know, I kept daily attendance records. I kept, you know, there's a tab for each child and grade sheets for each quarter for each subject, and it was just all in one place. I could just compile it there, and we'll go more into detail with that in a minute. But you know, that was mine. And then the kids ended up with 2 really large 3-ring binders each, divided by subjects. And for the school year, I had them keep every assignment. I had them put their name and date on it. I know it seems silly, but my fear was they would go back to school one day and not realize they needed to write their name on assignments, because they never had to do it at home. So I don't know, I just kind of tried to keep it like that. And so, you know, all the English papers were in one tab in order. And then whenever they went back to study for a test or whatever it was, you know, all the information was there, and they could learn from the problems they got wrong and see what they had done well and all those kinds of things. So I like the 3-ring binder. But another thing you can do is use like an accordion file. It's so quick and easy if you just want to shove something in. So you've got your English slot and your math slot and your science slot. It just keeps it all in one place, and it's very easy. That's kind of for the daily work. Some people will keep a photo album, and they'll take pictures of all the special projects and take pictures of all the places they went and activities they did, and kind of create almost a portfolio. Art projects, all kinds of things can go in there. And it's just a really cool record of what you did that year, and so fun to share with grandparents and family members. And for the kids to go back and say, oh, I remember doing that. It was so much fun. There are all kinds of, you know, with that on the same line as a photo album, you could make it digital. You could do a PowerPoint presentation or whatever it is, you know, you could keep it that way. And then as far as tracking assignments, kind of back to where I was on the 3-ring binder, you can do all those things online. There are endless tools available. Some are free, a lot are, you know, the free trial, and then you pay for the rest of it. But I'm going to give some names of sites, and I'll email all those out to you, but there is no end of them. I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg here. So I already talked about this, how this slide, actually, I got ahead of myself, how I would keep everything in the 3-ring binder. I didn't keep all work every year. There's just far too much. And so at the end of every year, I would pull out important tests or pieces of written work, things from the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, to show progression. It was like a portfolio of what they did. And I would just, it was small, you know, and it just, if it was a project, it was a photo, because I couldn't keep all the projects. But it just kept it contained and manageable. And some of the work samples I kind of store in legal boxes out in the shed or something. But for their grades, I just had a simple folder each year, and this I will probably keep for a long time. But it had their report card for the year. It had the curriculum we used kind of had quarterly grade sheets. I would keep those for the 4 quarters for each subject, and an attendance record. There's many printable ones that are easier, but I just kind of said the date and what we, you know, whether we did lesson 23 that day, or we went on a field trip that day, or what, you know, whatever it is, or they had soccer practice that day. That just a quick note of what they did, and it helped me keep track of how many days we did. And then also where we went on field trips. We typically took one day a month to do a special outing. And so I would just keep track of the types of activities that we did throughout the year. These are some examples of tracking software and online services that I found, and I'll email these names out to you. I didn't personally use an online service, but I can really see how it would be so beneficial. You know, it's already done for you. It's just a really simple way to keep track of everything that you're doing. So I've talked about grade records and attendance records. There's a few of the other things that you might want to keep track of are like I talked about work samples, but also maybe a list of books you read that year in addition to your curriculum. Any test scores, if you do any kind of standardized testing, or if you take SATs that year or anything like that, keep a record of it. Any awards or achievements they've earned that year. They were in soccer, or they were in a play, or they volunteered at the food bank, or anything like that. It's just great to have a record of that. And, you know, when the time comes, transcripts and diplomas. So here's an example of a really easy attendance sheet for the year. You know, there's months of the year, days of the month, and then a total, you know, put down a total number at the end of each month, and then tally that up for the end of the year. It's just such a simple way to say we did school here. And 180 days are not exactly required. I looked up our local school district. They typically had about 175, 176 student days. And I tried to at least keep to that. We typically did 180. Here's a similar calendar. I just did a check mark for the days we did do school. I would put an F in for field trip, S for sick day, X for no school, and then tally the days. So it's just something I kept in the front of my binder, and had one for each child, and just kept it for the year. And then here's a sample of a weekly planner. If your curriculum does not come with one, this is a simple tool just to say, on Monday, we did math pages 23 and 24. We were talking about fractions, you know, just as simple as that. And just the plan for the week, I'll say that many curriculums come with their own, and that's what I kept, because it kept a much more in-depth record actually of what we actually did. And I would cross off what I said we were not doing, and just show what we did do. It helped me to stay on top of where the kids were and where they needed to go. And it helped them to feel a sense of accomplishment too, to look back and see all that they had done. Or if we needed to change it up, that was fine. We needed to work on this particular part a little more because it was a harder concept. We had the flexibility to do that. And that's part of what I love about homeschooling. So we've already said that transcripts and report cards aren't required in Delaware, but they are very helpful if your child transfers to another school. For receiving incentives, you get a good student driver's insurance discount. That's a pretty nice discount to get. My kids would get their bank had a student card where you got punched for every A you had, or different things, and so they could earn I forget if it's $5 or $10 once their card was punched, but it was something they really liked to do each quarter they got a report card. So, and then of course, I mean, life circumstances change. You might move out of state, you move just over to Maryland, and the laws are very different, and you have to present a portfolio to the Board of Education or Department of Education twice a year, you know, present samples of your children's work. And so, you know, Delaware's lenient, but not every state is. And so these are just great records to have. And of course, they're essential if your high schooler wishes to go on to college or apply for a job, apply for scholarships, all kinds of things. So this is something that you want to start in the early years so you have time to practice it and tweak it and make it look nice. So some of the key things to go on a report card are your school name. You've chosen your school name when you registered as a homeschool family, and the mailing address and phone number, make it look official. You're going to put your student name and grade, and you're going to choose a grading scale. I think that many public schools choose something like say 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, and so on. And some private schools or charter schools sometimes make it like 93 to 100 is an A, 85 to 92 is a B. Whatever it is that you choose for your school, just keep it consistent over the years, particularly in high school. Those 4 years need to stay exactly the same. In elementary school, you can play around with it a little bit more, but you just need to know for that year what you've chosen. And I always assigned a percentage value as well as a grade value. When you apply, many colleges, you know, do their own individual calculating using your grade scale to, you know, create the, I guess, the GPA that they would assign you based on what they determine the grade scale to be. So the percentage and the letter grade is very useful. And then you need a first semester, a second semester, and a final grade for the year. I mean, I did all 4 quarters. You can do first quarter, second quarter, the semester, and like that. When you choose a class name, you might want to be kind of specific about it. Once you get into high school, you don't just want to say math, you want to say you took Algebra 2, or, you know, whatever it is. Just a short, concise name, but, you know, it's specific to what it actually is. And give some teacher comments. The kids love to hear your feedback. It goes so much deeper than just the letter grade. You write your attendance and your signature, and that's about it. I've got a whole list of downloadable templates here, which I will email to you. I really have to say I recently discovered Canva for various flyers and things at work and found out that they have report cards. There's a free version and a paid version. So in the free version, very few are free. But the ones that are, what I like about it is that you can completely customize it. You know, you change the grade scale, you change the school name, you change the color, whatever it is you want, and everything is typed and printed, and it looks really, really nice. This actually is a sample of one of the free Canva report cards. On the side, it says El Dorado Elementary, so you can put your own school name in there and, you know, assign the grades by quarters. And they have a category for conduct. So you can choose the, you know, the attributes that you want to remark on for your kids, and change the subjects as well to suit your own curriculum, whatever it is that your children are doing that year. So it's not difficult, and it's just a nice way to present the grades. And by the way, once you get to the high school level, it's typically agreed upon that one high school credit is going to equal about 120 hours of work. So, you know, if you have, maybe your child is very musical and spends a lot of time in music lesson or orchestra or something like that, and you can tally up all of that and count it as a music credit, things like that. If it's 60 hours, you know, a half credit, that kind of a thing. Let's see here. Here's another example of a report card that I think is probably pretty suited to elementary school. This one is also included in the information I'll email out to you. In the lower grades, it's nice to maybe not use a grade system, use outstanding, satisfactory, needs improvement, or incomplete. That's acceptable too. Probably after third grade, you want to start with actual grades and just get used to that for the upper grades, but there's no requirement either way. I like that. I like the habits and attitudes category. I think that it allows you to customize that to your child and just to really encourage them in the things that they're working so hard on to achieve. And then this is part of the packet that I'll share the link with to you. And this particular company, 123 Homeschool for Me, it has a whole variety in there. They have two-sided report cards so that you can choose a first grade cover and a second grade cover, and they're kind of cute. And then, you know, more plain ones for the upper grades, that kind of a thing. And you can customize it to your preference. But I don't think they're editable as far as entering the grade in print. I think you have to handwrite that part in. Or if you're handy with a spreadsheet, you can just make your own. And so some people would want to know how to calculate a GPA. So the basic formula is your grade times the number of credits divided by the total number of credits, and that equals your GPA. So on a 4.0 grade scale, an A is equivalent to a 4.0, a B a 3.0, C a 2.0, and so on and so forth. You can see on the right side how it's just this is super basic, but have assigned like English, 95% is an A, and it's 1 credit. And so because these are all worth 1 credit, with that formula at the top, I'm not going to worry about multiplying by credits. So I'm just going to add a 4.0 plus a 3.0 plus a 4.0 plus a 4.0 plus a 4.0 equals 19. It's 5 credits, so we 19 divided by 5 equals 3.8, and that brings your GPA to 3.8. There's a handy site called gpacalculator.net, and it is really great if you have a more complicated, maybe in the upper grades, your kids are taking honors classes or AP classes, weighted classes, and you need another tool. So that's a great place to just plug in the numbers that you need to plug in, and it will calculate it for you. This is another GPA scale giving different point values to a plus and a minus value. So A plus is actually a 4.3, A is a 4.0, and an A minus is a 3.7. You know, if you want to differentiate between those, you can certainly do so. And then it's the same exact formula for figuring it out. It's just a little more work to figure it out with, but all you need is a calculator. So And then the sample I have on the right side is really, if you look at those high school classes, I mean, we've got to be having some honors classes and heavily weighted classes for chemistry to equal 4 credits. I mean, that's not typical, but anyway, it's just something, just an example for you to see. And so to figure out that GPA, you'll see at the bottom, like for pre-calculus, they got an A, a 4.0 times 2 credits. And then history is a B, 3.3 times 2 credits. And we did the whole thing, added them up, and divided by the total number of credits, 13, which gave a GPA of 3.3. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to transcripts. So if you have a high schooler, this is really key. And like with report cards, there are all kinds of online templates available. There's also online services available that will write a transcript for you for a fee. And it can be really nice to have a very official looking transcript. I actually belonged to an umbrella homeschool when my kids were in high school, and they reported the grades to the state for me and issued a transcript, and it looked, you know, it was very nice. And it was nice actually for me to have a transcript not signed mom, but from the name of the school. But I think that homeschooling is becoming so acceptable and so much more common that it's really not as big of a deal. But it can be helpful to have an extra set of eyes on it, checks and balances, just to make sure that you're meeting the state graduation requirements. And also, if you know what college your child is interested in, look at what their requirements are, because they can be quite different to what the state requirements are. And you want to make sure that you tailor your child's curriculum to that. So it's, you know, really very similar to a report card in the terms of the type of information that goes on it, your student identification and your homeschool contact information. But of course, you're going to have all classes from all 4 years of high school on there. So you can break it down one of 2 ways. You can have 9th grade and all classes taken in 9th grade and 10th grade and, you know, like that. Or you can break it down by subject, English and all 4 English classes you took, chemistry or science and all 4 science classes, you know, those types of things. So you can break it down either way. And also, if your child took any high school level classes in 8th grade, you can indicate that. For example, they might have taken Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So you would say classes taken before high school in its own category, and then list that, because that is a high school credit. So you will, if you do it by grade, you're going to list the core subjects first, followed by the electives. And you're going to have a cumulative GPA at the end. You're going to list any kind of test scores, SAT, ACT, AP classes that your child took. And then you might need a second page, but you can list any achievements or honors or awards that they've earned. And that gives a more complete picture of their school life. You want to list the graduation date and the parent's signature and date. And then there's a couple free transcript templates listed, which I will email to you. So here is one example of a high school transcript. And this one breaks down the classes by subject and indicates what grade it was taken in. So it could be, I wrote it could be Actually, it's by did I say that right? It's listed by subject. Yeah, so we've got language arts first. And so you would have your 4 years of English and and all your social studies classes, all your maths classes. And you would indicate, I took this one in 9th grade and this one in 10th grade. And here they've got a grade scale and total credits earned in high school and a GPA. And so, and this part is so small that it's hard to read on this screen. But anyway, any kind of test scores, SATs, this has a place for volunteer hours, leadership positions, achievements and awards. I would almost want to do a second page for that to really highlight what the child has done. Of course, your official signature and date. And this is a template for, you know, like a fill in the blank template for a high school transcript. And so I kind of like this one just because it tells you in parentheses exactly what to write, where to write it, and then your grade scale at the bottom. And a second page is given for, you know, the schools you have attended, your activities, awards, achievements, hobbies, volunteer work, standardized test information. I just like that it's spread out a little bit and that you can really include a lot more information on that one. I know many people make up a spreadsheet and keep track of it that way, and that can look very nice as well. And then another thing, this is something that I got ahead of myself and spoke about it earlier, but some of the other types of things that we want to keep a record of for the school year are some work samples and book lists. I think we kind of covered this. You know, if you have bulky things like this fantastic science experiment over to the side, you can keep it for a while, but your house will fill up so quickly. So take pictures of everything, keep an album or keep it online or something, a record of what you did when, keep a list of any kind of textbook or supplementary book that your child has read just for you know, a record of what you did when. I think most curriculum will send out a list of what they, you know, what they include in their grade package if you go that route, or if you pick and choose from here and there, or just compile your own, you can easily make that list. So yes, test scores were another thing that went on there. There's no required testing in the state of Delaware for homeschoolers. But if you do choose to do so, hang on to those. I periodically had my kids tested just to give me an idea of where they were and where they excelled and where they struggled, and you know what to work on and what to pursue. So those were helpful tools for me. And then of course you need your SATs and ACTs for college. You know, types of extracurricular activities to keep track of are music lessons, sports, speech and debate, scouts, hobbies, leadership activities, 4-H, volunteering, art classes, and clubs. So include awards and achievement records, pictures, certificates, hours spent on them. My son is really into karate, and that when he was homeschooled was very much his gym class. And so I kept a record of how many hours he did, you know, how many classes he attended, how many tournaments he attended, when he tested, when he was promoted, those kind of things. And that became part of his gym record. Actually, my kids were all in 4-H, and so that was, you know, those types of things. We just kept track through pictures and in award ribbons from the fair, and they did each year. And then this is certainly, again, it's not a requirement, but these are just things that are really handy to have on hand. Life circumstances can change in a hurry. And, you know, should the need arise to put your kids in school, or they want to try out for a team and these things are required, these are just really great things to have compiled for your child. Or you also, you know, you move out of state and that state does require it for homeschooling. So those kinds of things. But, you know, copies of birth certificates, immunization records or waivers, records from previous schools they've attended, any kind of correspondence with the Department of Education. You know, you've got, you established yourself as a homeschool family, just those kinds of things. Any receipts for educational materials, you can declare those in taxes. And keep all the pictures, all the photos of what you've done. Those are happy reminders. And oh, the key to your evaluation or grading system. So, you know, what is the grading system you've decided for your family? And then how long do you keep these records? Because yes, it can stack up in your shed or in your garage. Really, for the lower grades, K through 8, it's at your discretion. I would encourage you to keep a small sample of each year's work, as well as their report cards. But once they're in high school, keep their work records, their work samples for at least 3 years, but keep their test scores, their report cards, their transcripts, portfolios, correspondence with the Department of Education. Keep those permanently. See them through college at least. Hang on to those things. You never know when you're going to need them. You know, a friend of mine, her daughter decided to join the military 10 years after high school. She needed a transcript and she was having a really hard time digging it up. You just never know when you're going to need those things. So hang on to them. And I'll tell you, my kids, we always had a dump party at the end of the year for what we decided. We weren't keeping all those many worksheets and things, that all the homework assignments along the way. We kept the key ones, and then they would pile everything up in the recycle bin, and they had a pretty fun time doing that. So I just want to say thank you very much for listening to the presentation. I hope it provided some useful information for you. Here at the Greenwood Library, we would love to be your homeschool library. Whether you live in Greenwood or you live across the country, it's okay. Email us, give us a call, and we would like to help you out in whatever way that we can. And speaking of that, we have a couple upcoming programs for, one is for students who are learning at home. And this is our Picturing America series. And the next one on November 6th at 2 o'clock is all about Paul Revere, the life and legend of Paul Revere. And I think that your students will find this very interesting, and there will be some material to go along with it just prior to the class. It's for homeschoolers of all ages. And then the next one for adults in this series, the Homeschooling 101 series, is on November 20th at 3 o'clock. It's schooling multiple ages. And I think that this is a very useful tool to know how to juggle it all when you're teaching kids in different grade levels, different ages. Just some tips for that. So thank you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask.